Hello, welcome back to Urban X-Files. My name is Keith, and today I am continuing the series of most haunted cemeteries. This is the third in the chapter of haunted cemeteries, and today is a very famous cemetery that is thousands of years old. This is the Valley of the Kings in Luxor. The Valley of the Kings in Egypt was built around 1500 BC, and for over 500 years it was used as the burial place for Egypt's kings and its greatest nobles. However, it is best known for its relation to the infamous King Tutankhamen, which fell upon those who discovered the Pharaoh Tutankhamun's curse when they opened and went inside. This was by Howard Carter and his team in 1922. The Valley of the Kings holds 63 tombs and burial chambers and is full of disturbing activity that cannot be explained by science. The Pharaohs Ghost is one of the most common hauntings that are associated with the Valley of the Kings, and this involves the ghost of the mighty Pharaoh who still rides in the shifting sands of the valley. One tourist who was visiting one evening, after his advice given not to go at night alone, he took no notice and went to the Valley of the Kings, and he heard an unusual sound. Turning to the right, he saw a man who looked like the classic image of a pharaoh driving its fiery chariot, drawn by a host of big horses pulling along. So the thunder and sounds of the horses' gallop met by the sight of a powerful pharaoh. To take him back, because you are not meant to see these things, yet he did, and it terrified him to the point where he ran away as fast as he could. This ancient king wears a golden collar and an Egyptian headdress as he drives his fiery chariot, and this did belong to a powerful pharaoh. We are unsure who this pharaoh is, but being buried in the Valley of the Kings, all the same, he was a powerful ruler. The phantom pharaoh seemed oblivious to his world around him. He is lost, no doubt, in his own kingdom, in his own time. He has been sighted multiple times throughout the years, and its usual time to see this pharaoh is by the stroke of midnight. The pharaoh Akhenaten is another pharaoh that witnessed by many throughout the years. According to legend, he was cursed by the priests of his time somewhere in 1400 BC, after he abolished the worship of Egypt's gods. The curse forced his spirit to wander the desert, the Valley of the Kings, always seeking a place to rest, but never finding his place. One tourist who witnessed a surprising haunting apparition late one night described the figure of a rather large Egyptian dressed in a style that dates back to thousands of years ago. He was stumbling aimlessly across the sand with his head and back slightly bent forward. The tourist concerned this man might be ill called out to him, yet the tall, slender Egyptian man turned toward him, and before the tourist's eyes had time to take in his sight and to take in the details of this man's face, He simply vanished right in front of this terrified holidaymaker. We go back to the mummy's curse, and many of those involved with the unearthing of the final resting place of Tutankhamen, as I've discussed in another story on my channel. Tutankhamen met with seemingly untimely ends. He was known as the Boy King. Howard Carter was the archaeologist who discovered the find of his career by finding the tomb of Tutankhamen, who was lost for thousands of years in the Valley of the Kings. Lord Carnarvon was a wealthy and powerful man who financed the expedition, but somehow succumbed to an infected mosquito bite from his neck. Many others suffered fate, but not unlike Howard Carter. He perished from the effects of bacteria, chemicals and gases that had been trapped in the tomb for thousands of years. There is something you have to ask yourself. This curse of Tutankhamen, was it really a curse, or was it simply poisonous gases, insects, different things that had festered for thousands of years, because they used various chemicals to entomb the king to preserve their bodies, which is why we have mummies today, and you can still see they look like they'd only recently passed. So was the curse of Tutankhamen more of a scientific reasons behind the curse, or was this simply just a way of explaining the scientific reasons for the fabled curse of Tutankhamen? Now, while the Valley of the Kings is not a modern cemetery in today's standards, the Valley of the Kings is still a city of the dead. And even if you don't see this blazing chariot flying through the desert, or the pharaoh wandering amongst the sand dunes, you will more than likely hear footsteps walking with you, only to turn to see nothing. You may hear desperate screams that echo all over the valley, but never be able to locate the source of the screaming. Watchmen in the area remain convinced that the spirits of those whose tombs have been carelessly desecrated still wander. Are they searching for the treasures that have been taken wrongly from their tombs? Whether you should see or hear anything out of the ordinary, you most welcomely feel something strange in the Valley of the Kings. I have personally been to Egypt myself, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go inside the Great Pyramid. This was back in the early 2000s. I went with my wife Stephanie, and what a sight it was. My thought of how the pyramids would be was that the pyramids would be off into the desert, and this is not the case. I remember traveling through Cairo, and we went past the slums, like real slums of Egypt in Cairo, with it being such a huge city. From what I remember, Cairo is 3 cities that had come into one. Giza, I forget the details. Now, when we took the coach, we stayed in a hotel called the Le Méridien, and from our room we had a stunning view of the pyramids. Now, as I said, my expectations of seeing the pyramids in Cairo was that we would take a long tour across the sand dunes before we met the pyramids, but it's not like that. It's like you are traveling through the slums as you come up, and you go over the hill, just there, the pyramids right in front of you, right in front of the slums. It's such a sad sight. Now, it's very polluted. I remember when we went up to the pyramids themselves and we were outside the Sphinx. In fact, there was a film getting filmed there, which was a bit strange because it was samurai warriors fighting outside the Sphinx. So I don't know what that was about. But when we look back and we look towards the city of Cairo, the city was filled with smog that sat above its city. It was awful. The pyramids it was trashed. Unfortunately, there was lots of rubbish flowing around. Many people, Egyptians that were going with their donkeys to get people to go for a ride and charge people for their trips. But I have to say the pyramid itself was extraordinary. When you go, we went up to the steps and the entrance to the pyramid was halfway up the pyramid, and it was into a small chamber you go into, and it has been divided for people going down and then the other side for people coming up. So you had to walk inside and sort of crouch down, and you've got a rope to use. It's very claustrophobic. But when you come inside, and I was lost for words for what it's like inside and how it was constructed, how thousands of years ago was they able to construct these massive buildings. People used to think that the slaves were brought to construct the pyramids, but that is not the case. More modern research has found that the pyramids was constructed by the pharaohs, and the workers were paid a handsome sum. They weren't slaves, they were skilled laborers. So it was a nice thing to hear, because it's not nice when you hear slaves are used to construct these monuments and stuff. So it was nice to hear that. But one thing I found so strange is that when Steph and myself had got to the bottom of the pyramid, because as we travelled up and then it goes down quite steeply right into the underneath of the pyramid, it's so strange, it's just surreal, and it's so hot. As I say, you know, the desert is where Cairo is, in the desert, so it's hot, like really hot. Now when we finished touring around the pyramid inside and we made our way back outside, it was nice getting out into the desert to cool down. That is one thing that stuck with me, is that it was that hot. But it's such a sight to see. So anyway, enough of me rambling on. I hope you enjoyed today's story about the pyramids. If you're enjoying this series of haunted cemeteries, I will continue them. This is episode 3 of Haunted Cemeteries. So stay tuned for episode 4. Take care and see you in the next video. Peace.